Then we hiked up Stone Mountain and down in a thunderstorm, which was like the sketchiest thing ever because you're like on the steepest part and there's like this rail and it's thundering and lightning. I'm like, and you're trying to like hold a child so they don't slip in the rain.
Welcome to the More Sunsets Please podcast. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live debt-free, sell it all and live small, travel the country full-time, or raising animals and growing your own food as a sustainable family? My name is Kate, and these are just some of the stories of those who have jumped outside the box and living life on their terms. This is More Sunsets Please. Thank you, Sam, for being here at the More Sunsets Please podcast. I am happy to have you here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So I always start every podcast. Where are you right now?
We are in Jacksonville, Florida. We're actually located on Naval Station Mayport, so we're actually more towards the beaches, living on base.
Living on base. Okay, you are the first person to share this story, and I'm excited that it's you to share it. Can you explain a little bit how you got to where you are now, being active military family?
We actually have been in Jacksonville for way too long, of about 11 and a half years, just between the two bases here. But we are currently living full-time in our RV, and our youngest is 5, and we decided when she was 1 month old, which kind of kickstarted our idea of selling our house because we owned at the time and being able to be debt-free. So it took us 3 years and 1 month to actually do it.
Oh my
It
gosh.
yeah, we had for 3 years, we went back and forth. We're just like, is it the right time? We knew exactly what fifth wheel we wanted, and we stuck to that for the 3 years. And then 2020 happened. I don't know exactly what changed our minds, but we decided, let's get an Airstream. And we bought it in December of 2020 and renovated that March of 2021, and then actually started living full time in it and sold our house in July of 2021 until we upgraded to the fifth wheel. Yeah, it took a lot of years to actually just bite the bullet and do it, which we had wanted to, and we didn't tell our family until we sold our house and we were actually living in it.
Oh my
My
gosh.
mom, that's the same way I did it with homeschooling. I'm like, I don't know, like I don't think you would be against it, but I didn't know how on board they would be. And my mom was like great with homeschooling. And she was like, oh, living in an RV makes sense, especially with his job. If we ever get stationed anywhere else, then we told my in-laws.
And how'd they take it?
I think they thought it was going to be like a couple month thing. And we're like, sure, you can. I mean, if you want to think that, sure. But we knew that we wanted to, like, we could do it for years. And we're coming up on our 2 year anniversary this summer. But yeah, I think after we lived in it and switched to the fifth wheel, they kind of really realized that we were serious about it.
Now you guys started with the Airstream.
We
What made
did.
you what made you switch to the Airstream?
I,
It was
I
beautiful. Don't get me wrong. You guys did a
thank
great
you.
job on the Airstream, but
Thank
that is a
you.
totally different way of living full-time stationary than the fifth wheel you have now.
It is. I think one major reason was we could put it on the side of our house. Like a fifth wheel wouldn't have fit to have the sides open or lengthwise, but an Airstream could. And that was the one way we could really do it was downsize and be able to move in and renovate it and do everything that we needed to do before we actually put our house on the market. And that was like a big key. But we liked I mean, even though I love the fifth wheel, but we like the simplicity of just being able to not have to deal with slides or toys under the slides. Um, and just being able to hook up and go. And with it being smaller, we like that idea, but I really don't know. All of a sudden, Eric was like, "Well, let's do an Airstream." I'm like, okay. Yeah, but we actually just sold it last weekend.
So you guys are on base. Can you explain what that's like living on base in the RV park versus in some of the homes that they have on base or staying off base? What does that look like?
So each base is a little different. We've been on both bases here, and this one is our favorite. The other one had the same amount of sites, but it was condensed, and you were like right on top of your neighbor. Here we have space, we have actual parking spot. So it's so tucked away that when we originally lived on this space 10 years ago, I never knew it was back here. And it was like back behind the neighborhood that we were in. It's nice that with the active duty, you get to book a year out, which was very helpful. It wasn't something I knew originally until I went from the for a space to here, but we are able to book further out than the retired guests are. So that was helpful. Yeah, we lived off base originally at an RV park by the airport. So base, it's a cheaper option. Bonus is he's attached to this base, so he's like a less than a 5 minute drive to work, and he can come home for lunch. And then we're literally like a 2 minute drive to the beach because this base has its own private beach. So that's where we go.
Nice.
Yes, we've been there like all last week. Whenever I'm done with like my host duties, I can go there and take the kids and let them get energy out.
Now, you just touched on that a little bit, that you're one of the camp hosts at the campground there.
Yes, I'm one of the two hosts, and we work every other week, so only 2 weeks out of the whole month, and just help like bring guests in. We have coffee every day in the clubhouse, so I make that, and then just help out a little bit throughout the park, but it's not an all day, everyday thing. We do get free rent with it, so that helps.
That helps a lot. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
yeah,
Because that's another perk of living in the campground versus in the housing, because you're not going to be a house host and get free
no,
rent.
no. So you get BAH with the military, and it's a housing allowance. So we still get that. And like right now, we're putting ours toward debt because we had to get a new truck whenever we got the fifth wheel. The housing, they take all of that. So you have to budget accordingly. And it's basically, it depends on your rank in the military, whether you make 1,500 for your housing or like 1,800, they're taking it all regardless of what you make for whatever set allowance you have. It's a lot whenever you're so tight with the economy right now. So it's definitely a blessing to be able to be in the RV park, and we don't have to pay for electricity or anything. So I know some parks around here do, but we don't have to.
That's really nice, because yes, most places, as soon as you stay monthly, let alone annually or whatnot, as soon as you hit that monthly mark and beyond, you're paying your electric on top of your monthly site fee. So
Yeah.
that's really good. One less bill you need to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys have been at this Jacksonville area the entire time. I know some people will get transferred. How does that work for you guys in his position in the military?
Every couple of years, you're basically up for orders. It just happens that every time he goes to shore duty or sea duty, we get picked with Jacksonville. So you can have, like this month, actually, he can start looking at new orders. If we ever get out of Jacksonville, it wouldn't be until next April. He can start looking. You put like your wish list of the ones that are open, and you get 3 looks, and if you pass on them, and if you're not picked up by the third time, then you're basically at the needs of the Navy, so they can put you wherever you want. The last time that we had the option, really, before we got to this command he's at now, it was either here or San Diego, and we're just like, well, we'll just stay here instead of
Yeah.
going to an even pricier place.
Yeah.
So now his job has a smaller area of where he can go.
Because what does he do?
He is a rescue swimmer. So he flies in the back of the helicopters. And right now he's on shore duty, but he just got okay to go back to sea duty because he was past year and a half or so with everything going on. He was deemed non-deployable, which is great. But now they deemed anyone that didn't have the vaccine can go back to being deployed. So he gets to go back to sea duty. So with sea duty, his options, if they're available, are Spain, Japan, Jacksonville, Hawaii, or San Diego.
Ooh.
I know. We back in 2020, like right before the shutdown happened, I think it was like during his time he could choose. We had wanted to go to Japan, and then the shutdown happened, so they took that away. But every one of our friends that have been there said they absolutely loved it. For a short amount of time, Spain was open because they were starting that command up again. And he was like, let me go talk to my wife. And then in that time, they gave it to his friend. And I was like, do not hesitate. If you have Spain or Japan or Hawaii, like, don't hesitate. Just say yes. So right
We will
now,
go.
I know.
There's
I'm like,
no
I will
uncertainty.
sacrifice
That's right.
going to Spain.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as of like last month, I don't know if it's changed for this month. Hawaii and San Diego were the options. So I'm like, twist my arm to go to Hawaii.
Right.
So we have been playing with different scenarios of like, if we are stationed in Hawaii, what will we do with the RV? Or if we go to San Diego, or if we stay here, we had like all different scenarios to try and think about. We'll see
And
what
when would he
happens.
find out for that?
He can start looking, I think, towards the very end of this month. And I want to say it's like every other month you can like look. So if he doesn't see anything this month that he likes, I think they do it every other month that they open up what's out there. So maybe midsummer we would know for sure. So it's just the waiting game that I do not like.
Oh, yeah. But you should be used to it. You live in Florida where you wait for a hurricane to come attack
I
you for
know.
like weeks.
I know. That's true.
I can handle tornadoes because they're like in and done. But those hurricanes, it's like a turtle is coming to kill you with knives. And you're just like, are you here yet,
Last
turtle?
year, I know, last year we had to evacuate twice just because we're so close to the water. I'm like, the
Yeah,
second time, I'm like, we don't even have to evacuate, but the
no.
bases made everyone do it.
Yeah, that second one that was a storm. That was like no different than a storm we would have at home. Ian, okay, that was a little bit more serious,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
hitting the other coast for you guys. So, how has this living in an RV benefited you guys? How has this worked? How has this been the better decision than housing?
We are able to save money and pay off like debt with it. So that has been a huge blessing. But just with his work, like if we ever do get stationed somewhere else and we're still in the RV, we can actually move our home, which would be ideal. And that's like one thing that we liked about that or about this lifestyle is if he did get stationed in Maryland or Nevada or even San Diego, we could actually pick up and move and not have to wait on a house to sell and we didn't want to rent out a house, especially from across the country. Like if he has an opportunity, I think, to come to Orlando for like work, and I'm like, if it's a week I'm not on duty, then we're just gonna go to Thousand Trails or
That's
something.
right.
And so I actually booked that for like next month. I was like,
Yay!
wow, yeah. So I was like,
So by the
I'm
time
going
this airs, we'll be hanging out.
I know, that'd be fun. Because I'm like, I'm going to be there for a homeschool convention. But I'm like,
Oh,
I also booked it. So we can go before that and just have the whole week.
nice. Oh,
So
that's perfect.
yeah,
And that has been really beneficial that you don't have to then rent out something to go on vacation. You could
yeah,
just move your house to go on vacation and you don't lose your spot where you are, which is so
yeah.
awesome.
I mean, we go to Orlando quite a bit, and it's nice because that campground in particular is like 15 minutes from my mom's house to where we don't have to invade her space because we would all be in one room. So we can actually have our space. We can keep the dogs with us so they don't, because she lives on a little mini farm, so they don't pester her animals. So it works out.
So you guys have been doing this coming up on 2 years, and you stayed pretty much Florida except for a few escapes.
Yeah. We've gone to South Carolina. We've gone to Georgia up to Stone Mountain, which was really fun, and we want to do that again. And then we've gone to like Cocoa Beach and like just the Space Coast area, and then Orlando.
But that's a like you said, that's two birds, one stone. You get to go on vacation, have your own place, and be 15 minutes from your parents. Typically, when we do some major life changes, there's like a turning point that you're like, okay, there's no going back to how we did life before. What was that turning point for you?
Probably the past couple of years is just how everything has played out, like getting the RV, and then with Eric, with his job, he didn't get the vaccine. Both of those kind of tying together now because with that, his exemption got denied. He was actually like 2 weeks out from being kicked out until the Navy got saved. And we were just like, okay, we had both prayed about it, and he came to the decision like, God's telling me not to get it. And we felt at peace with that, even though it was a very scary thing to think about of like, what are we going to do for a job? We were looking at being able to travel full time, which is, I mean, that would have been like amazing. And I'm like, we would have had our home to do it. And it was just like, that was a really good turning point because it just made us appreciate this lifestyle even more and that we had been in it for a little bit and that no matter what, we own our home. That worry of like where we're going to live, that stress wasn't there, especially during like, I mean, it was hard for everybody, but going through that just very stoic, I guess. And he doesn't really show much of his emotion, but I know it was such a hard thing because I'm here trying to support him, but he's like at work every day when people are like, well, why don't you just get it? Like when he made chief in 2021, they have initiation of like 6 weeks or something of a chief season. And it's just like all day, every day of just doing made up stuff. I don't know. It's kind of
Just made up
pointless,
stuff.
but kind of like they're trying to get like together and brotherhood and sisterhood. And I get it, but at
Yeah.
the point, like 6 weeks is pretty dramatic. But halfway through that is when his exemption got denied. He was pretty much voluntold, like, you can either stop on your own or you're going to be forced to stop. And that a hard realization at that point, like, okay, there he had a great group of leaders behind him that were fighting for him to like drag out as much as they could, which actually helped because of the timing of everything. But it was an interesting time.
Yeah. But that really solidified that if he did lose his job, you
Hmm.
guys still had your home, you still had somewhere
Yeah.
to live. They couldn't take that from you without the income.
Yeah, we knew like we just felt a peace that no matter what which way it worked out, it would work out in the way it was supposed to, and we would have found some sort of job to do and travel when we could, or travel full time, or whatever it may have been. But now he still has a job, but unfortunately, we have to wait like at least another 8 years until he can retire.
That's okay. It's only 8 years.
I
He
know,
gets to
yeah.
retire sooner than Mike, so you're good. So, this whole journey, any journey really, can be full of ups and downs. What have been some of the highest highs and lowest lows for you along these last 2 years and even leading up to? Let's definitely start with the lows first so we can end on a high.
I mean, I think the low would have been like during that time in like 2021, 2022, of like where he almost got kicked out. I mean, I think that was like probably the lowest of this whole journey. And then I guess just not being able to sell the Airstream for like the longest time.
But it did sell.
Yeah. So I think that would be like the lowest part. I think the highest would just be traveling, even though it hasn't been like super far or to like all these grand places that you see all the time on Instagram. Even though those would be amazing, it's just not doable for us right now. And that's okay. The girls have fun no matter where we go. Taking them to Stone Mountain, we spent like a week there. It was during Christmas time, so they had a Christmas village, and then we hiked up Stone Mountain and down in a thunderstorm, which was like the sketchiest thing ever because you're like on the steepest part and there's like this rail and it's thundering and lightning. I'm like, and you're trying to like hold a child so they don't slip in the rain. We walked the next day or so, we hiked around it and it was like 7 miles. That was like the girls' first time on a mountain hiking instead of flat Florida, but
But even touch on that for a sec, because some of the hikes that you have done
yeah.
with your girls have been amazing. And you guys literally throw stuff in a backpack and you're gone.
Yeah. So actually, funnily enough, back in 2020, I went hiking for a week on the Appalachian Trail, and that's kind of where it all, I guess, started. Because my friends were like, "Do you want to go hiking with us?" I'm like, "Sure." Don't know anything about it. Learned a lot on that trip. And then for Christmas that year, I got the girls like little day hike backpack. And so we would do like little things around Jacksonville. But this January and February, I took Aria, which is our oldest, out on her first overnight backpacking trip and camping. And then I did Karina, which is our middle daughter, the next month, right before her birthday. There's not a lot of people know about it, and I didn't even know about it, that Florida has a hiking trail, kind of like the Appalachian Trail or a lot of the longer trails, but it's called the Florida Trail. Florida, there's something technical, but like Florida Scenic Trail or something. It starts at right around Key West and it goes all the way up, and you can take east or west of Orlando, and then it goes all the way to the Panhandle, and it's like 1,100 miles. I took both of them on sections that were close enough to each other that were a couple hours away from here. Even though it's flat, it's just different scenery. It was a lot for them because they hadn't ever really carried more than snacks and a water.
What are the girls carrying in their backpacks?
So the girls, like you're supposed to only carry so much percentage of your weight. So I think with kids, they recommend like no more than I think 10% of their body weight. I could be wrong. So Karina is so tiny. She struggled with it because we walked further than I walked with Aria just because we were kind of forced to because of poor judgment on my part of like planning. I didn't realize certain sections we couldn't stop, or we were on private land and we could not camp there. And I'm like, we have to keep going. But they had their quilt, which was a Christmas gift for them. Like we had custom quilts done for them. So that was like about right under a pound. A hiking, like a little pillow. They had it wasn't an air mattress, but they had like a pad to sleep on. They carried their water and then snacks. And with Karina, I had to kind of keep switching it around, but I think she had like her night clothes with her because I tried carrying the majority of it because she's so tiny. But Aria had maybe a little bit more, and we switched the food around with us. But I carried like our food for the whole trip, our first aid, and all sorts of other stuff that would be heavier for her.
Yeah, because you guys are carrying your food, your water, and your shelter with
Yeah. Oh,
you.
yes, and the tent. Yes. So I
Yeah.
carried the tent. So it's like like all your basic stuff to pretty much survive while you're out in like the wood in Florida, like with Aria. We were the only ones around the pond that we were at. So it was cool. I knew there were gators. It was Florida. And you could hear them at night. I'm like, I'm not getting out of my tent. Like if no. Like I'm not getting out to pee during the night. And she's like, "Oh, I hear coyotes." I'm like, "We're definitely not getting out." It was a cool experience. Karina cried a lot just because it was like we were basically forced to walk 13 miles, I think, to the shelter.
You walked a half marathon.
Yeah, we did. And she cried a lot, and I felt so bad because whenever I was planning it out, I didn't realize a huge chunk was a road walk or on like a path, and then it was like private lands that you weren't regular people that aren't hiking are a no trespassing area, but you can't stop in there because it was like also during hunting season. So I was like, we have to keep going, and then like this tiny like 0.2 of a mile section that we could have camped at. It wasn't clear enough. And then we entered a part of the woods that you couldn't camp until you got to the shelter, which was miles away at that point. And once we got there and we set up the tent, she was like, "This is the best night ever." I
Oh, so
was
that
like,
did make it worth
I was
it.
like, I don't think we had the same day, but yeah, yeah. So that made me feel good after making her cry. But
Yeah.
she really enjoyed the whole like being in the tent and cooking our food, and so that
I
part was
love that
fun.
she didn't let the entire experience leading up to that was really
Yeah,
challenging ruin her experience of the camping. That it still was the best thing ever.
yeah.
And she's how old?
She was 7 when we went, and like a couple days later, she turned 8.
That's incredible. So if anybody who's listening understands, an 8-year old, a 7-year old, almost 8-year old walked a half marathon and then camped and cooked their own food with mom.
She got to earn like her camping badge for her American Heritage Girl, so she's excited about that. And so did Aria. And now Mia, bless her, she wants to go on one. And I'm like, okay, but we're not going to go far because she's only 5.
So mom will route the map a whole lot better this time.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, we might just stay like in the Jacksonville area or go just a couple miles, spend the whole afternoon somewhere.
I love it. I love that you're doing these experiences with the kids. Even though you guys can't travel, you're making these cool little adventures for them that they'll get to remember forever. And they're learning some pretty awesome lessons of being able to camp in the wilderness, pack up and go. So many kids can't do that. And that's a big gift you're giving them.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's what we want. Like they're outside all the time. And granted, they do get screen time, but we don't want them to be just stuck on that all the time. Experiences. That's what we like to give and what they enjoy. And it was one-on-one time with them. So that was needed on both parts, I think, especially being so close to each other all day, every day. I do homeschool them. They're with me all the time. So being able to have that quality time with them was very important, and you could tell that it benefited them.
Like you said, living in such a small space, that togetherness all the time can have its benefits, but it makes it even more important that we give them that one-on-one time with both parents
Yeah.
individually, because every child just needs to know that they have a strong relationship with their parent on their own and then as our family unit. Wow. Okay. So what does the future look like for you guys? I know you touched on potentially going somewhere else, but you may stay put. You don't know, but what does the
Yeah.
future look like?
So I mean, obviously depend on what happens with his job of where we go. Our little scenarios that we've been playing out, like we put ourselves on the housing wait list, which could be 4 to 6 months. Someone else in the RV park has been on it since October. They're waiting for the same number bedroom house that we would be on. They have just been steadily at like number 9 since October. We just put ourselves on there because we had to by April. You have to be on it a year before like his current orders would run out. If we do end up going to Hawaii, we'd rather move from a house than from our storage unit. And so we could go through that a little bit better. And then we would probably sell the RV instead of storing it for 3 years. And then we would get another one. We enjoy it so much. If we go to San Diego, we'll probably just stay in it because everything is so expensive out there. If we stay here, we have a couple options of like, do we keep ourselves on the housing list or do we stay in the RV, which we both love it. And so do the kid. But his only thing is since he can't go back to sea duty and be deployed, and if he is deployed and it's during hurricane season and I have to evacuate, I would have to do this all by myself. And I have only backed up the RV that one time that you were there.
That's
Um,
okay. We can work on it.
yeah.
I'm here for the support of women drivers.
And I'm just like, I could figure it out, but
Yeah,
I don't think he wants like all that stress on me while he's gone.
deployed. Yeah.
So it all just depends on like the time, like if we stayed here, the timing of hurricane season and when he would be deployed.
Can you line that all up that if he does get deployed and you're on the wait list that you could transfer, but then if you guys relocate, you could just remove from the wait list and relocate?
Think you can, if you are offered a house, I want to say someone told us that you have like 3 times to say, I'm going to pass on it because they'll tell you, like, oh, it's like this house number, and you can kind of go look at it, which we've done before. And if you don't really like it, then you can say, I'm going to pass. With his orders and him being deployed, it just all depends on that squadron because some deploy quite often and some don't. Like the Hawaii orders, he would be on sea duty technically, but he wouldn't have to deploy unless he chose to. There's a squadron here that is basically the same, but San Diego, I know he would be gone.
They're gone a lot, I find.
Hmm.
But they don't have to evacuate for hurricanes.
Yeah,
So,
we just have like earthquakes.
right?
I've never been in an earthquake. I've been in Oklahoma growing up, like with tornadoes, but never
Yeah.
like earthquakes.
Earthquake, I don't know. I don't know. Although we have an earthquake every day here. So,
I know. The girls make it feel like a stampede of elephants when they run. So
yeah,
like it
exactly.
has to be close to that.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Not
The
really,
only
but
earthquake we've experienced was like a plastic chair outside fell over. That was the Ontario earthquake.
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I remember our big CRT TV doing this in the cabinet. I'm like, what's going on? And then I felt our couch move. I'm like, this was weird.
Oh
And then
wow.
it ended, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a hurricane. That was an earthquake. Oh my gosh. And then it was all over the news. Well, all over the news, all over the social media at the time was just Facebook. So it was just pictures of plastic chairs falling over, the
That's all.
damage from earthquake, Ontario, 2006 or whatever it was.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So that would not be California, but they haven't had an earthquake in a long time, I feel.
I don't think so. I
I
don't
feel
know.
like it's like
I haven't watched the news
impending.
a
So
lot,
maybe
so I
don't pick San Diego, okay?
I know. I'm just like if it's between here and San Diego again, he'll put here.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Like I
I'm
just
not
want to
biased at
know.
all. I totally like
I
you
know.
guys being here. Even though you're
I know.
far, I like you being here.
I know. And then our family's all within 5 hours. So my dad's like 5 hours away in Georgia, and then my mom's Orlando, and then his parents are Tampa area now,
Yeah.
and his sister's like down south. But
In your household, we didn't even touch on the fact that who all is a part of
oh,
Bourn to Go.
oh yeah.
So let's back that way up. Who all is a part of Bourn to Go? Oh my goodness.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. It's gonna be me and my husband Eric, and then our 3 daughters. Aria, she's 10, Karina is 8, and Mia is 5, and then we have 2 dogs.
Two dogs. You got to share their names because they're silly.
So Sophie is our big dog. She's like a German Shepherd Malinois mix, and whatever else is in her, I don't know. But then we have a Schnoodle, and his name is Schnitzel because I thought that was hilarious, and so he was a gift from my mom when Eric was deployed. So he came home to a dog.
There are worse things to come home to, like crazy
Yeah.
makeovers or renovations. A dog is acceptable.
Yeah, and Arya was, I think she had just turned 1 whenever we got him. So I probably picked the hardest name for any child to say for a dog, but I was like, it's just too funny to pass.
I love it. I think it's hilarious. Every time you call him, I'm like, oh my gosh. Hee, hee, hee. So, how has living in the RV been for the kids? I know that, Mia's not going to have much memory of being in the house versus the RV, obviously.
Yeah.
But for them as a whole and then individually, how has living in the RV been versus the house?
I think it's been good. They in the house, we had two bedrooms for them and they kept going to each other's and then we just ended up putting them in the room together. That part hasn't really changed. Arya has kind of stated she's like, I wish I had my own bedroom, but she really enjoys being with them and she has a full-size bed of her own. They each have their own bed and their own space. They like to play with each other. Obviously, they fight because they're sisters. They each have enjoyed it, and I think it's just kind of brought them a little bit together even more. And they just have to, they have like a tent going on out there or a fort. So they're very creative with like their small space to play. So it's been interesting to see that, like either by themselves, they'll do their own thing that way, or right now together. But just seeing like how it's kind of fit each one of them has been kind of fun to see. They enjoy it and being able to travel when we can. I think they like that aspect of like, hey, I have all of my stuff. I don't have to pack a little suitcase or something.
And then what about for you and Eric? How has this worked for you guys? The fact that he's 5 minutes away right now in the current campground, I can only imagine how awesome that is just for him to be able to come back and forth. But for your marriage as a whole, how has this benefited?
I think it's brought us like closer together, which I mean, we were already close, but it's been a lot less stress on the marriage, I guess, with like when we sold our house, we paid cash for this. So we don't have to, like, we own our home. Just having that off of our shoulders and just being able to do more things, not have to worry about a yard and being stressed about that and like snapping at each other about like to-do list every weekend instead of like being able to relax. That's been a big change. We're in tight quarters. It's been good. It's been better than like I think when we were at the house because we could all just kind of spread out more. But here we just kind of have found a rhythm that's really suited us. It's just been a nice change. And I don't want it to change.
You like your tiny home?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And it is. It's one big consistency for you guys when you live in the military world where things constantly change.
Hmm.
You know, you can just, okay, we're just going to pick up and move. And you don't have to pack everything and put it into a shipping container, get reacquainted with a new house and all its quirks when you get to the new location. I know I don't know the military life very well because this is not the same as Canada at all. But I know a few friends who I've seen go through the transition from moving from location to location to location to location and constantly having to box up an entire house, ship it across,
Yeah.
and then get used to a new house, which you can't really then make your own. They have to then box up and move to a next one. So at least this,
Hmm.
it's tiny, it's tight,
Yeah.
but it's yours.
Yeah, with military moves, at least something's going to go missing or something's going to come broken. And you see that so often. And we've only had one actual military move from our storage unit when he first joined, and we moved from Panama City to here. That's when they moved us, but everything else we've actually done ourselves because we chose to get different housing or buy a house. We had a box that wasn't even ours. And it's not like, I mean, it was like a pot and a pan and like some basic stuff, but it's just like someone's missing their pots and pans and like they can't cook unless they go get something else. And it's like you don't know whose that is. It's nerve wracking whenever most companies are good, but there are just individuals everywhere that make something good bad and they'll see stuff that they're packing up and they're like, oh, they know what box number it is and stuff goes missing. And that's why, like, if you have it documented, if it's a valuable item to you and irreplaceable, it's hard to be like, well, it was worth that much, but I don't have the actual thing. Being in here, it'll be nice if it does come time to move, like we'll just get a U-Haul or something for our storage unit and we can actually move that ourselves versus waiting for someone to move it and waiting for our goods to come. And then, like you said, with housing, even if you buy a house or rent, every layout is so different. So a lot of the time going from housing to housing is your stuff doesn't fit. So you have to either get rid of it and get something else. It's a lot. And that's how it was for me growing up because my dad and stepdad were Air Force. So we moved every 3 years.
Now, how is that different? Because again, I know nothing American military, it seems. How is Air Force different from Navy life as a family?
My dad and stepdad were able to go more places than what Eric's job is limited to. For shore duty, Eric could go to like Maryland or Nevada or like stay here and stuff. But my dad and stepdad, like I was born in Wyoming. I don't remember it. I've been in Florida for 20 years. I went back and forth between Oklahoma and Germany twice each before Florida. Yeah. Yeah. I know, yeah.
Okay, so the whole purpose of this podcast is somebody out there might be listening to your story and it resonates with them, or it's what their life is, and they want to be able to make this change. How would you inspire or encourage them to jump out and make this change of not living in housing on base, but jumping into this RV world?
Yeah, I think it would just be like that cliche saying, like, just do it. On this base, compared to the other one in Jacksonville, there's a lot more families that are doing it, not just retired, but like active duty families with kids. So our girls get to play with them a lot. And so it's been nice. But I would just say, like, if it's something that you thought of, don't wait 3 years like we did it. If it's something you want to do, I mean, even if it's for a little bit, just try it because it's so flexible and I think you get more with this lifestyle and being military, you have more opportunities to do more things with like if you have to travel or something. I always like the saying, make memories, not dreams, because you can make dreams all you want. Like we had a dream of doing this for 3 years, but until whatever it was that like kicked our butts into gear, like it wasn't going to be happening until we did that. So it's good to have dreams, but to make a reality is something completely different. And that's just like what we're trying to do with our girls. That's partially why I named our channel Bourn To Go. It's a play off of our last name, but also doesn't have to necessarily do with being in an RV, but just going out there and getting the experiences, getting the memories, not just dreaming about it, but actually being able to do it. Granted, we can't go to the Grand Canyon right now, just making the most of what we have at this time in our lives, sharing it with our girls. That was important to us.
So not just do it, but understand it's a possibility.
Yeah, and a lot more active duty families are doing it. Our best friend's been doing it since Mia was a month old, and she's 5.5 now. And they have
Wow.
6 kids, and they're in a travel trailer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so they basically have the version of just a travel trailer of what we were looking originally with our fifth wheel, which has like the huge double sides for the bunk room.
Yes.
I think they're ready for a house after 5.5 years.
Yeah.
So once they get where they're going, they're going to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, she was pregnant with her fourth when they started. So it's like, it doesn't matter the size of your family. I know there's people with more kids or, I mean, even less. It's doable.
It is. Just knowing that there's so many other families that are making this decision. Because, like I had said before, when we were talking before on the podcast, that we've met so many active duty families living in RVs, whether it's on base or off base. It's exciting for us because then I know they're making memories, they're getting out and exploring, but still being able to be with their family as you guys travel.
Yeah.
Because we've seen a lot that travel quick and fast between the bases, it seems.
Oh, yeah.
And that's huge because you know it's not just going to be the retirees who are coming to stay at the bases, that it's
Hmm.
families as well. So you're not alone. So if somebody
Yeah.
is listening, you won't be alone. There's lots of families out there that are doing this on base. So you had mentioned your channel name. Can you just share again where somebody could find you if they're looking for you?
So I'm mainly on Instagram. We do have a YouTube under Bourn To Go. I just haven't really done much on it recently just because of this past year of like taking over as camp host and being busy with that. But we do have stuff on there, but it's just mainly those two platforms, I guess.
So Bourn To Go on Instagram and YouTube. So I will put that in the show notes and people can connect with you if they'd like to reach out. And I really appreciate having you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these stories, please leave us a review as it helps our podcast reach more listeners. For more information about this podcast, with show notes, links, and more, please go to our website, moresunsetsplease.com. But we want to hear from you. If you know of someone with a great story, send an email to info@moresunsetsplease.com and I'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time, keep taking time to enjoy more sunsets, please.